So you all set?
I'm ready to go.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Behind the Brand. We're with Chris Conway today of the Chamber of Commerce. Before we get started, I just want to let you know that this is brought to you by Direct Line Media and our famous 60-second video. That's a flat rate video package. Be sure to check us out, Direct Line Media, productions.com. Anyway, Chris, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Dave?
Thanks for coming on this snowy Saturday today. We're doing
Yes.
this on a Saturday, so a little bit snow. I was surprised that we had so much snow out there this morning.
It's nice to see three-dimensional Dave for a change.
I know, right?
We've been interacting on Zoom for about 5 weeks now.
Doing a lot. It's been 5 weeks, yeah. Yeah, it's been 5 weeks. I had Len on last week, and I was telling him, I remember getting off the plane, coming back from New Orleans 5 weeks ago, and, you know, my email blew up with everything got canceled. So, and then we've been running like that ever since. But I'm at the point now where it's when are we going back now? It's like, okay, we have to adapt. And I think that's one of the things we're going to talk about today is how businesses are adapting and not really giving up on when we're going to reopen, but I think it's more of we got to work for what's happening now. And I think that's what a lot of folks have sort of transitioned into, some sooner than others, but I think all of us now are in the mode of this is the reality. Let's work with it. Let's just not wait.
Yeah, that would be my observation as well, and that's certainly what I've seen.
Yeah, yeah. How are you doing? How's family and everything's good?
Everybody's good, you know,
Yeah.
following all the rules, and you know, like so many people, you know, two parents working in the house, also with a child who needs to be educated, and also has extracurricular activities. So he right now is in the middle of his Zoom karate class with his 25 classmates, and he does that 3 days a week. And you know, he had lunch via FaceTime with one of his school friends, and my wife even went to the trouble to put it in his lunchbox, and he got to eat it just like he was at school with his friend. So
yeah, that's cool. Just to give that a little bit of normalizing. It's fun for them.
It's
a fun treat, you know, because you're locked up and you don't see your friends. So yeah. To have that special lunch and school lunch, yeah. Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, my mom made all my lunches all the way through senior year in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. It was very, very good treat. I think it's very rare. But
what kind of lunchbox did you have?
I didn't have a lunchbox. I brown bagged it, and it was funny. So there wasn't. It would be like ham and cheese sandwiches, you know, carrots and cookies, all that kind of stuff. But no refrigeration. I just put it in my locker all day, and you know, when I got to the lunchroom, you know, the cheese was just like a little bit like
nice,
you know, soft and gushy. But it was good. We ate it. We survived. So yeah, let's get back into it. So we're here on I call it lockdown or quarantine or whatever we are, but business is definitely not normal. And a lot of folks, I think, maybe panicked at first. What are we going to do? And now I think a lot of folks that has passed, and now we're in the mode of this is the reality. This is what's happening. How do I pivot now with my business to be able to serve people and put some money in the bank kind of thing. So can you think of a couple examples of some businesses that have made good decisions as far as pivoting and what they're doing in terms of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the ones that were hit first, obviously, from the closure orders were the restaurants. And for the most part, they generally responded quickly. So you have different types of restaurants. You have ones that traditionally do delivery and takeout, and that was kind of their business model. But you also have, you know, the sit-down places, which may, you know, in the past have done it incidentally or really not at all, and they were able to quickly pivot and, you know, get up and running with different delivery services. Was it, you know, it was Grubhub or DoorDash or, you know, just, you know, redeploying their wait staff as delivery people. That was really the quickest thing that we saw. One of the things that the chamber did. As that happened was, you know, the revenues were still, you know, tight, obviously, and we were one of the voices advocating for the ability for the restaurants to sell their unopened alcohol and have that delivered as well. So, again, you know, that's not the normal course of business, but the governor was, you know, forward-thinking enough to realize that should be able to happen, you know, to add revenues to those businesses.
You know, that brings up a point. So obviously, you know, a lot of restaurants are selling food or delivering food that didn't, or doing takeout rather, and delivering food that normally wouldn't.
Correct.
And now they're being able to sell bottles of alcohol and stuff like that. What other? I mean, you've been in close contact with the governor and probably a lot of other government officials. What's your take? Are they letting businesses adapt as needed? What's been your sort of feeling about the government and allowing businesses to adapt appropriately?
Without getting too much into the politics of it, I think that they're doing the best they can and trying to be as smart as they can with things. You know, the overarching thing of this is the public health, and that really is got to be the driving force behind a lot of these decisions. And they are hard decisions. You know, to tell a business you're not able to operate right now, you know, I don't think anybody at any level of government takes that decision lightly. But I do think that they've been able to adapt. I was talking again via Zoom on a networking group with Dr. Shana Burke, who's an allergist. You know, she's in the business of, you know, injecting people and doing all sorts of things. And I asked her about her business, and you know, right now, certain things that she normally would not be able to do via telemed, she is able to do now. So there are some changes to businesses that traditionally have, you know, not had those in place.
Yeah, so I know we talked about massage therapists in particular, and I know Rick down has a local dentist office. He's completely closed.
Right.
I don't know if dentists are able to do like emergency procedures.
I believe they are. Yes.
Sort of
yes,
but regular dentistry is shut down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, they're in close contact with saliva, and you know, so definitely is.
Don't want to get in contact with that. Yeah, especially infected. What are like massage therapists doing? Have you come across anybody that's been able to pivot, I guess?
Certainly, and you know, again, that is another business that has been severely hit. You're in the business of touching people. You really can't do that right now. So, you know, a great example would be, you know, Kaylin McBee, who owns Balance Massage Therapy and Wellness Center. She's always been very good at educating people through video and through social media and through her other electronic forms of communication. So she's really just, you know, kind of upped her game, and really that's what she's spending her time and resources doing, you know, keeping her name and brand out there in front, so that when this is over and, you know, whatever means we're able to return to normal and she can operate her business, you know, she didn't just go away. She just had to adapt and change.
I've noticed that. I think she has more of a presence now online in social media than she ever has. I mean, she's always had a pretty good presence with her videos and those things she does, but now it's even more so.
Absolutely.
Which I think is great. What's another example? Do you have another example of a business that maybe isn't necessarily closed? They're allowed to stay open, but they can't do business as usual.
Sure. So another good example would be, and I believe they're still doing this, Play It Again Sports. They converted to curbside. So, you know, now you're in a situation where you've got the kids at home, and, you know, you can't go to the playground. There's certain things you can't do. You can't play team sports. But if you got a basketball hoop out there and you didn't have a basketball, you could, you know, give them a call and tell them you need to come pick up a basketball, and they'll meet you on Main Street there and take care of your basketball needs.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really good. It's funny. I was on Amazon, so it's my granddaughter's 6th birthday coming up on sometime this week, 23rd. So was that Wednesday, Thursday? Anyway, so of course, you know, being late like we are every year, you know, we're like those last minute shoppers. My wife and I'm always better than I am, but so I said, well, let's grab something quick on Amazon. The stores aren't closed, so even with Prime, you know, it was like May 10th, I think, delivery, and other things. It depends what the product is. If it's like an essential type item that somebody might need, they honor it. But if it's something that, like a toy, for instance,
right? Yeah,
you're going to get it when you get it, right, kind of thing. So,
so something I should mention, you know, again, you know, the chamber, you know, one of our main roles is to help our businesses market what they are doing, and we've traditionally done a pretty good job of that, I think, but we had to change ourselves too. So we set up some special Facebook groups, one called Takeout Time West Hartford, which that one was designed for the restaurants, and they could put their menus up, they could take pictures of what they were, you know, selling, and we also invite the community to share their experiences and take pictures of what they got, and, you know, post reviews, and that's been up just under 4 weeks now, and it's got over 2,100 people on it.
Wow. Wow.
And that's just been fantastic. But we also wanted to recognize that we do have other businesses that are operating, in a non-traditional way. I used Play It Again Sports as an example. Kimberly Boutique is another one, right there on Farmington Ave, and we created a Facebook group called Curbside Commerce. And same thing, we want people to be sharing what they are doing, what their parameters are, hours of operation, and the method in which they're doing business.
So I know obviously she can't have really regular customers in the store, but
Correct.
What type of selling is she doing? Is she doing curbs? Is she doing like people call up and is she delivering? Do you know kind of what she's up to?
So you see a smile on my face.
Yeah.
My office is about 5 doors down from Kimberly's shop, and I do have to go pick up the mail a couple times a week. And I was driving down Farmington Avenue, and on the corner of my eye, I see Kimberly on the sidewalk with a dress, showing it to a customer in a car.
Yeah.
And I went and got the mail, and then went back, and of course, distancing, told her, that was first of all great to see, and certainly checked in on her, but that's what she's trying to do, you know. So she is doing, delivery. Clothes are a little bit of a challenge because of the sizing, and it's got to fit just right.
Sure.
But again, I think many businesses are getting creative and trying to figure out what they can do for people, not what they can't do, and that's really important. Yeah,
and I think we're just going to see more and more of that. I think people have been planning things now for a couple of weeks, at least I know I have, of thinking about what I can do differently in terms of video. Because again, what I do is I have to be with somebody, right. And even my crew, we're in close contact, so it's a different world. But I think we're going to see more and more of people offering. I know Tile America.
Yeah, another great example.
Yeah, so tell us what Tile America is doing, because I know he's been all over social media too, promoting some things.
Yeah, so Brian's started putting out a series of videos. They have some really great tools, electronic tools, where you can basically shop your tile and see how what it would look like in your house, and you can. I believe it's pickup. I don't know if they're doing delivery, probably. Certainly you can check out Tile America for the details, but the gist of it is that you can, if there's a project now that you're stuck in the house that you think you want to accomplish, you can do that and basically see what it's going to look like before you do it.
Now, is that a technology that they've always had?
I think so, but I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but regardless, it's certainly now being marketed much more if they did have it before.
Because I could see that technology just never going away now.
Absolutely.
I think people are just going to do that. Instead of going in and getting some samples and talking to the person, they're just going to use that and go to the store and buy it and come home again, which, and maybe that's going to happen more with other businesses too. They're going to come across a different way of doing things, and that's just going to stick with them. I'm sure that's going to be
so that is something, as I've been speaking to business owners, or we've been doing quite a few networking groups and educational things for businesses, and that's one of the kind of the probing questions I ask them is there something that through this you will not abandon and you will continue to do it and enhance your business on the other side of this? And I think that there is a lot of opportunity. You could think of what I mentioned earlier, the sit-down restaurants who now maybe have gotten comfortable with the delivery. Do they now dedicate a part of their establishment for a pickup window, a takeout window, and kind of co-market that, and still go back to, when they can go back to their traditional sit-down business, but enhance it.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that the Miali team is just going to keep delivering pizzas. Yeah, we got ours the other day. He's another one, just popped in my head, who is, I don't know if he's really changing the way he's doing business, but I think he's figuring out a way to help people. So it's not so much he's, Miali team, Keller Williams Realty is who I'm talking about. But I think he's out there really trying to help folks and his clients and past customers and future customers and acquaintances and just by picking up pizzas and delivering them for folks that maybe want a pizza and they can't, and they don't want to go out or what have you. So I think
to your point, he is still conducting his business, but again, that's an industry that's had to change.
Sure.
You can still buy and sell a house right now. Yeah. You're doing it virtually. We had Katie Stevenson yesterday from Norcom Mortgages on our AM Connections meeting, and she was our 5-minute presenter, and she had an infographic basically demonstrating that the entire process for the mortgage can be done completely electronically at this point. It probably always could be, but people were still comfortable, getting the lawyers and sitting down and all that, but you actually can do it. And Amy Babbage was on there yesterday, and she was doing a virtual home showing. Same thing.
Yeah, and I think people, I have to go see the house. Well, you can't. I mean, maybe you can go see the house, but it's even house inspections now. The inspector goes in there by themselves with the phone, and they FaceTime it or Zoom or whatever. So it's still live with the customer, but it's using technology to look at the house, which I think is. I can't see that going away either.
Right.
I think that's super convenient.
And for some people, this may open them up to new customers. So, you were just talking about home inspectors. So Bob Kulikowski is, home inspector in the area, and he's continuing to do that. But is there going to be an opportunity for him to expand that at some point and be able to, again, have that as, something that's part of the norm when he is able to just go back and completely do everything that he used to do? That can just be another option for people.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great option for people. Yeah, again, I can't see that going away. For instance, if somebody, has a vacation scheduled, or they're whatever the reason, they're not going to be home. Whether maybe they're at work, so they'll be able to watch the inspection virtually like that.
Yeah,
I think that's great. What type of new businesses have you heard of any sort of new businesses popping up or new work, or do you have any idea of maybe what new businesses could come out of this?
Well, I do, and we're already starting to see it. The obvious one would be people who sanitize locations, and that is going to be, I think, one of the biggest things that comes out of this. It's going to go beyond a crew of people coming in with a vacuum cleaner and a feather duster to your office on a couple times a week to probably a pretty thorough deep clean on some sort of a very strict rotation with some very strict protocols in place. Yeah. That would be one. Something else I want to mention is there's been people who've transitioned their own business, but then there are people that have transitioned and redeployed their forces in other ways. And I had a great conversation with Mark over at the French Cleaners. So the French Cleaners is still open. You can get your shirts done and your drapes or whatever you would need to be done. They're still there. But he's got tailors and seamstresses that are now making PPE.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that is something else that I have seen. Yeah. Painting companies have and construction companies have switched to making different types of protective gear and masks. People who were in textile businesses making things that they were not normally making, but they have the ability to do it, so they're shifting.
Yeah, and breweries and distilleries are making alcohol for sanitizing or hand cleaners.
I've seen that as well.
Yeah, so everybody's making that shift.
But that is something I want to say. Throughout all of this, with very few exceptions, I think people have really stepped up and for the bigger picture. And are really there's just so many people out there that are trying to do their best, for the greater good. Yeah. They certainly have their own interests to worry about, but a lot of this shift has really been to help their neighbors, to help the frontline workers, which they desperately are in need of equipment and supplies. And the fact that people have done that, I think, is really, really great.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. There's a lot of it, and in every industry, whether it be education or just doing different services, whether it be financial services, mortgage, real estate. Oh my God, you can name them all. Even like Kaylin, bringing her up again, she's teaching people how to do different things. I know Len is offering a meditation course online, things like that. So it's a lot of different things happening.
We have a couple of music teachers that are chamber members, old the old, I always get this wrong, the old new school of music.
Right, yeah.
And then we also have, which hasn't even opened its physical location, we actually have School of Rock West Hartford, and just Friday night they did a drum workshop. And
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, Morella is also doing weekly lessons for kids.
Yeah. I think that's great, and the technology is just, it's there. It's amazing that technology's always kind of been there, but we've never really used it for practical purpose. Obviously, there has been a lot of people that have, but the general public have used it more for an entertainment, I think, than opposed to actually using it for good, productive causes.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that shift now, where obviously it's still entertainment, but there's still so many productive uses for even just Facebook and all these different social media. And then of course you got Zoom. I read an article too about Zoom was basically a business platform, right? It was just for businesses, but now it's being used by just the general public.
Yeah, that's what my son's karate is on.
Yeah. And so they're trying to shift to accommodate that. So they'll probably come out with a who knows, with a different platform for depending on what you're using it for. So.
Yeah, and I've mentioned, just in our own business, the Chamber of Commerce, while we're a not-for-profit organization, we are a business too. We're a business.
Yeah, of course.
And we had to pivot very quickly because this is, as I mentioned, a health crisis, but it's also an economic crisis, and we need to be one of the people. Certainly we work very closely with the town, Kristen Gorski, who's our economic development specialist, trying to get the information out to the businesses. But the chamber itself, as we've got a robust networking programming and educational programming, and we are very fortunate that we have a strong team within the chamber, and Kate Cobes, who's our outreach and development coordinator. I want to say it was like March 15th, opened us a Zoom account, and we did a board meeting the following day. And a few days later, we did our AM connections on schedule. Had 28 people for the first one.
Yeah, I think that's incredible.
And we had 59 this last week. Yep. And she's like a maestro with that, because she's got to queue up 59 people to give a 30-second commercial. Get people up, for the share screen part for the 5-minute presentation. Yeah. Getting people registered. We have been very fortunate that we were able to do that rather quickly.
Yeah, it's amazing because I was on it this past Friday and yesterday, and it was incredible. It just ran like clockwork. Everybody got on, they did their networking, and there's a lot of chatter going on. And then we started, and we went right through. And Katie gave her 5-minute, which I thought was great. And I think it's really good now I have a presentation coming up for a networking group up in Bloomfield, and it's going to be via Zoom, and I'm pretty excited. I'm like, I can really how am I going to really use this? Not just sit in front of a camera and talk, but how I need to get obviously that's what I do is media, but definitely use it to your advantage. And I think people have learned, like, I'm going to use this to my advantage. I have these great slides, and people are going to be there, they're going to watch it, and so I think that's terrific. So
you also have a captive audience. You're not sitting next to somebody that you're making a comment to, or they're asking you about something off topic. Yeah. Whoever's speaking is the only person you're hearing.
Is the only person you're hearing, and everybody else is muted, which is good. No, I think it's who knows? I mean, maybe. I was thinking about this. Maybe when we do go back and we do have the regular connections in the library, wherever we go, maybe there could be a Zoom portion to that too. The folks that can't make it, maybe there'll be an online. Who knows? I mean, is that something you've talked about, of offering both?
We haven't yet, but again, the question I'm asking other businesses, I'm asking of Jesse and Kate, my team. What are some of the things that when we get out the other side of this that we're going to continue? I think we're getting good as a group with a lot of this video stuff, and these can just supplement our programming once we're able to do in-person programming again. Yeah.
I think it would be great to have the ability of folks that can't make connections. Of course, on the flip side of that, you don't want everybody to stay home, right?
Exactly.
You need a group. You need a group. So, but maybe it's worth a shot. We'll see what.
Yeah, and we don't know what this is going to look like on the other end, and how long it's going to last.
Yeah, we have no idea, right? It's a moving target. That's why I said it in the opening. It's like people you have to go for now and accommodate.
Right, and at minimum, as we sit here today, we're still at least 24 days out from anything really change.
It's crazy, isn't it?
I don't see that date getting pulled back closer.
No,
certainly
I don't see it. Yeah, it's never lived through anything like this. It's quite interesting, but you got to be optimistic and wake up every day and try to do as much normal stuff, whatever normal means to you, as possible. Shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk about some of the businesses, if you know of a few, who have a really strong brand and why you think that is. When I say, like, what's a business that has a very strong brand, when you see it, people know what it is, even if they've never really met them before, or know what the company is, but they haven't. Is there a business that pops into mind that has a strong brand like that?
Well, I think you hit one of them right on the head, which would have been Tile America. I mean, I think that they've got, I think, 9 locations throughout the state. We have one right down the street from this studio, and that would be one. Their logo tells their story. Their name of their business tells their story. The look of their showrooms tells their story. I think that would be certainly a very, very good one. Another one, more of a local business to us is Float 41. I think that one is great. Sarah and Ryan, who are the owners of that, they've been actively promoting their business, and they've actively promoted their business almost a full year before they opened their doors. And when those doors opened, they were busy. People knew who they were and what they were about. And this is one of the tragedies of this. And I spoke with Sarah yesterday. They were barely open a couple of months when this happened. And for those of you who don't know, it's a float center where you actually sit in body temperature water with 1,000 pounds of salt water.
Yeah.
And you float into absolute darkness. Needless to say, that is not a business that it should be operating right now based on the current situation. But that brand has stuck, and similar to Kalen, they are doing education, they are doing promotions, they are. Sarah herself is a veteran, so they run promotions specific to veterans, and they're doing other promotions for when this is all over, for floats for frontline workers, et cetera. So that would be a real local one that I think has done a really good job.
Yeah, I remember when she first started, I couldn't believe she was in it that early in the place. She says, we're building every day, but it's a very clean brand. I think you know exactly what it is, and she presents it very well. Yeah, she presents it very well. I have unfortunately not been in there yet. It was on the top of my list, and then and now here we are. So I'll have to put it back to the top of the list.
Your bathtub and some table salt.
Yeah, there we go. That's all we need, right? Yeah. I think my wife does that. I don't think she uses 1,000 pounds of salt. I hope not. Yeah, that's a lot of salt. So there's also the thing of changing and updating your brand. But let's start with what is the oldest brand that you know of that's still relevant today, that really has longevity, and really you don't see a need for it to change at all? Do you have one?
That's a great question. Are you talking locally or just globally?
Well, let's do globally. I'm curious on your thoughts of that, or either one, whichever one pops into your head first.
That is a great question. You put me on the spot on that. Let me think about it. I mean, I think there's many. You could take some of the beverage brands, for example. Coke. Has probably evolved. They've certainly added novelty flavors and things like that. But they're basically they've been around for well over 100 years. Probably closer to 150 at this point. And everybody's narrative has changed a little bit. Sure. But, basically it's still the same thing.
It's still the same thing. I think McDonald's is another one, but I think McDonald's has done a little bit of a shift. McDonald's now has a rap for being just less than pleasant to go to. You hear about it. There's long lines, and the food isn't as good as it used to be, and things like that. But their fries are still good. But they're still out there, and they're still doing a killer business because they have that branding. So that's interesting.
So just related to that, something I did notice that happened very, very quickly, and certainly you can appreciate this in the business you're in. The television commercials, and especially for how the businesses are using that as a way to explain the way that they're doing business. And in some cases, it's the way they've always done business, and they're just reinforcing that. You know, the Little Caesars commercial I saw the other day, where, you know, once it's put in the oven, it's never touched by human hands again, and it goes into this box, and then you basically pick it up like it's an automat from the 1940s.
Awesome.
And, you know, I saw one with Burger King with them, you know, handing the food to you on a tray that, you know, they're wearing gloves and all of that. The insurance companies, that's probably another industry, you know, locally, you know, we've got a lot of them that, you know, we're right in the shadow of the insurance capital of the world.
Sure.
But with the home and the auto insurance, a lot of the insurance companies are discounting people's rates because, and basically giving them credits or in some cases money back because people aren't driving as much. There's not as much on the road, so the rate of accidents has actually dropped significantly.
Yeah.
And, you know, the argument has always been, well, you're put into a pool and you're basically paying because of what everybody else does. Well, everybody's in the same boat right now, and it's dropped. So, you know, just locally, you know, we have, you know, Keating and Bouvier and some of those, Thomas Fay, those insurance companies. That's kind of what the message they're getting out there is, you know, hey, let's look at this, and, you know, beyond what the carrier's already done, let's see what else we can maybe move around and, you know, help save you some money.
Yeah. No, I think there is a lot of. I've seen a lot of TV commercials pop up. A national one, what is it, Stanley Steamer or something like that. And they're doing their we have a hypoallergenic or, you know, different chemicals they use, not chemicals, but you know, products they use to clean your rugs. So they're not just cleaning them, they're sanitizing them too. So that's another. That's another brand too. That I don't think has ever changed as far as I can remember.
The trucks look the same from when we were kids.
It's
absolutely same branding.
Same branding, absolutely. So let's talk about the chamber. So you are executive director for just over a year now. Is that right?
Yeah.
And first of all, I want to say where you've taken the chamber in this year. I knew it was going to be quite a ride, but it's been quite a ride from this past year of where the chamber has been and the response the West Hartford Chamber, not just during this crisis, but I think just all the time. I think that's something that the West Hartford Chamber really should pride themselves on, is just being able to respond to all their members for whatever their need is, and for being able to act quickly on these current events. And this one is a great example of just how up to date you are in moving forward and helping people and just getting it done, just making that decision and moving forward. And I think so. I got to give you kudos for that. I think that's really great.
So I'll just quickly give everybody just a quick version of my background.
Please do.
So I worked for Barnes & Noble for almost 20 years, and when I started, they had 72 stores. I actually opened the 72nd Barnes & Noble Superstore. When I left, they had over 1,600 when you brought in the GameStops and all the other, the college division and all that. So they went from 72 to 1,600 stores, you know, really pretty much in about almost 2 decades. So I learned a lot. There, had a lot of access to a lot of business training. But on top of that, I myself was in the insurance business after that. My wife and I are business owners. So I've gone from working for a company that at one point was making $5 billion a year to a small boutique home-based business. So I've got experience in everything, but the biggest thing that I learned, you know, and the credit for the success of the chamber is certainly shared. But one of the things I learned is you put the right people in the right place with the right skill set, and I think that's where the success has come from. So, as I mentioned earlier, I have 2 team members. Jesse Bouclier and Kate Cobes, who they themselves come from very diverse backgrounds of service and nonprofit work and sales and marketing, and utilizing their skills to give our members a boost, because that's really at the end of the day what we do. We have to be a functioning organization so that we can help guide our members to be functioning businesses. And the chamber itself, you know, right now we're at 570 something members. Amazing. And they run the gamut of people like yourself that are, you know, a small 1 or 2 person business, you know, and, you know, right down the street here to Colt Manufacturing, you know, which has hundreds of employees, and LeGrand, which has some, there's like 300,000 square feet of space, and we've got
which you wouldn't even know it's in town, which is amazing about that place.
And everything in between. So we've got to be able to service people like your business, but we also have to be able to help people in manufacturing, medical, education. The local universities are members of the chamber. About 20% of our members are nonprofit organizations, Food Share and the Ron Foley Foundation, and American Cancer Society. You pick them. Most of them, many of the Main Street stores, the restaurants. So we've got so many different businesses that we need to be able to service. That's really how we operate, and it's based on it's very much a team approach to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is you kind of like promoted from within, if you will, because you were a member.
Yep.
You went to Waterbury for a little bit, and you're back, and then Kate and Jesse, they've both been longtime members of the chamber. So, and I think that's important too. There's a history there, so they know how the town operates. They know what people like in the chamber, and I think you use that knowledge and just expanded all that. So instead of having somebody, I don't know if this ever happens, somebody come in from the outside who may be a whiz in another town, another state somewhere, could actually be detrimental. So I don't know, but I think I was talking to. I think I told you this story. I was talking to Bob Kulikowski. This was before it was announced, and I go up to it was after Connections, and it was maybe a month before they made a decision or something like that. The board. And I said, "Hey Bob, I said, who'd be a great executive director?" I said, "Chris Conway." He's like, "How'd you know?" Like, because it was already like the decision was already kind of like going that way. He's like, "Who told you?" I said, "No, man, nobody. I just think it'd be a good fit." And here you are. So very cool. Good stuff.
Yeah. So to your point, there were, needless to say, other people that had interviewed for the position, and some of those people were from out of state. And I think ultimately the decision was, I knew the nuances of the organization, and again, you mentioned the three of us. We're all members of the chamber, and that's what we're constantly the unique value we add that not every other chamber can do is that the entire staff at one point was a member of the Chamber of Commerce. So we view things and make decisions based on what would we want when we were in that role.
Yeah, and I think that's important. What's one of the biggest, not now, not during this time, during regular time. What's kind of one of the biggest requests, or because I don't want to talk about problems, what's one of the biggest requests or compliments or things that people want to see the chamber do more of? Have you had those phone calls or emails?
As far as more, I don't know. The one thing that maybe was not as strong prior was the advocacy and economic development portion of our mission. So that is something we have been working toward. Obviously now it's a little different. Economic development has taken on a whole new role. But I've probably spent more time with my economic development committee coming up with ways to articulate the needs of the business community as a whole to the town, to the local legislature, and really during the coronavirus, the access and contact that I've had with the federal government has really gone into overdrive. So I think that is probably something that that people needed, that we grew into.
What type of influence, if that's the right word, do you have with the town government? I mean, I'm sure you're in constant communication with Sherry.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, have you? I don't want to say persuaded, but yeah, I guess what type of influence does the chamber have in making decisions for the town or for the businesses or anything like that?
So I'll start off this by saying that the chamber has historically, and certainly in my tenure, had a great relationship with the town. Actually, people get confused sometimes. They think that the Chamber of Commerce is actually an agency of the town, and we're not. We're actually a freestanding, not-for-profit 501c6 organization. Having said that, the mayor and I are in constant contact beyond things like ribbon cuttings and what have you. Certainly through Kristen Gorski, our economic development specialist, we always worked closely. We've worked more closely over the last month and a half. But as far as going to the town, so in the last year since I've been there, I've had the pleasure of going in front of the town council on, I think, 3 occasions, making a request that came through our Economic Development Committee from a member, or actually, in some cases, not even a member, but a business owner in town, asking for something. So I can just quickly give you those examples. So back in, I want to say, October of 2018, the state allowed for cottage food industries to operate out of a house. And just quickly, a cottage food is baked good typically, so cookies, cakes, muffins, things like that.
Gotcha.
And you were not allowed to operate that out of your home up until October of 2018. But the state recognized that there's a lot of businesses that want to do that. So prior to that, you had to go find a commercial kitchen, bake your stuff there, and then you could sell it and have it delivered. The town never changed the zoning regulations to reflect the state law.
Okay.
And we had a woman who had relocated from Vermont who had such a business in Vermont, and when she went to the town and did her due diligence, said, what are the parameters for cottage food in this town? And they said, well, there really aren't any. And she said, well, the state allows. And they said, yeah, but the town hasn't adopted that yet. So it came to the chamber, and we considered it. And these things don't come out of a vacuum. There's an application process that we have. It's considered by the Economic Development Committee. Economic Development Committee passes it on to our Executive Committee, which is the leadership of our board. And if they agree that it's something we want to get behind, we get behind it. So that was an example. I was able to address the town council, and that measure passed unanimously.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did all that process take? By the time she came to, because did she reach out to you?
She did.
She did. So by the time she reached out to you about her her request, by the time it was passed, how long did that take roughly?
Not long, a week and a half or so.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That fast.
Yeah. And we've had others. The property that is formerly the School Sisters Convent over on Park Road.
Where's that?
Right next to Effie's.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So there's the School Sisters. It's a huge historic. It's actually historic, which is one of the things that's slowing down the process. They don't need all that space anymore, but it's beautiful buildings, beautiful grounds, and there's a developer who wants to put different levels of market rate housing there.
Okay.
And the School Sisters are in favor of it. Most of the neighborhood is in favor of it, given some guidelines. And again, it was something that had to go to the town council. So the developer came to the chamber and asked for our support as well, and they had overwhelming support. And prior to us, agreeing to do it, we certainly did our due diligence, and we checked in with the Park Road Association and the residents and the businesses, and said, is this something that you folks really want in your neighborhood? And pretty much most people said yes, and they certainly had a couple of questions and concerns, but sure. Other than that, so we went to the council, and we were one of the other voices in that, saying, we think this would be a good thing for our town from a growth perspective and an economic development. And then the last one that we did was, there's a property over on New Britain Avenue, which is the former Babies R Us. Yep. There was a group of, so it had been abandoned for, I think, at the time I went to the council, about 13 months, something like that, maybe longer. And there were some restrictions on that building, on what could and couldn't operate in that building. One of them was a hair salon, but there was a whole list of things you couldn't put there. Alta wanted to go into the space, and there was really no compelling reason at this point that they couldn't go into that space. So again, the owner of the building came to us and said, we're looking for this change in the zoning regulation. Can we rely on your support? That that developer is a member of the Chamber of Commerce. Same thing, we went through our process and we were able to go to the town council, among other people, and say, we're asking that you remove these, and again, they did.
Why, I'm just curious, what would be, since it was a Babies R Us, which is, baby stuff,
Right.
Why would a hair salon, what zoning would say that a hair salon couldn't go in that space? What was the reason behind that? Do you know? I'm just curious.
We're not really sure. So Babies R Us had been there for, I think, 19 years.
Wow.
So this was something that was put in 19 years ago, and I don't remember the full story of what it was, but it was, you couldn't put a medical thing in there, you couldn't put in a takeout restaurant, you couldn't, there was a list of like 9 things, and if after you got through the list, pretty much the only thing you could put back in that space would be another Babies R Us, which was not going to happen. So.
Right, interesting. Yeah. So, would you recommend somebody either moving to town who wants to operate a business and having zoning troubles, or maybe they're not troubles, but it's not zoned correctly for what they want to do? Would you recommend somebody coming to the chamber first or going to the town first?
Well, I think you should always start with the town, and just find out exactly what they're saying. And again, I said we have a great relationship with the town. They're, they have their regulations to follow. But as we've shown, over the course of this year, if you come back with something compelling, just the fact that they didn't change it is just because it wasn't on their radar often. And if you put it on their radar, and I don't expect every time to get what we want, but we have a compelling argument, and I will tell you that they do listen. One of the things I mentioned, when I'm up there speaking, I'm not just speaking for me. I'm not speaking just for the board. I'm really speaking on behalf of our members, which, just the number of businesses and organizations that are members is, like I said, 570. But if you extrapolate that out, that businesses are members of the chamber, not individuals, that also then would count all their employees, which is in the tens of thousands.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's something you do. You're there to promote businesses, and in the meantime, while you're promoting businesses and members, then you're promoting yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's great. What I know there's been a change recently in West Hartford to allow, I don't know what the term is, but I guess more entertainment things, like bowling alleys, for instance, would be one. Were you involved in those changes?
We didn't have to be. That again, I think people look, and certainly if we were asked, I would tend to say that we would support something like that. No, that came up, and I think it came up, and generally people just thought it was the right thing, so it didn't need necessarily an extra push. The reason for that is we've got some really good available spaces here, and there's some really interesting businesses that could potentially go into those. Just unfortunately, the way the zoning was set up, they wouldn't be allowed to. So it just opens the doors for some more diverse, interesting, and in many cases just fun businesses to put into those places.
Yeah, and I think one, unfortunately, that's probably stalled is the what are they calling it? The gastro park, or the food truck park, or whatever, which I think is a terrific idea.
Yeah, it's right down the street from you here.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, you will never have trouble getting a good lunch, I imagine. Yeah. I saw a picture on social media or in the news on sometime last week. The days all blur together at this point, but because construction is considered essential, I believe that they are continuing with their construction so that once this is over, we can, they can get themselves, operational. And that, again, when social distancing changes, that may be advantageous to them because your ability to space tables and space seating is a little bit more flexible than if you're confined to a 1,200 square foot restaurant versus a larger parking lot where you can move pub height tables further away, and you can easily social distance people in lines and things like that. They are going to have some inside seating, but I think they're one of the businesses that may actually be able to hit the ground running when things loosen up.
What about, I know they're going to have food there, obviously, but what about the drinks? Is it going to be beer offered, or
I don't
wine
know
or
exactly.
whatever?
That's kind of been going on its own, so we haven't had to get super involved with it. So I balk at giving you an answer because I'm not entirely sure what the different what the alcohol rules are going to be for them. But
Yeah.
I think what you said is correct, but I don't want to commit to that.
Yeah, what's been happening here in my building at 485 is the brewery's open, so people would come up. There's a line. Depending on the day and the time of day, it goes out into the street, but they kind of circle around the parking lot, and then they get out of the car. They go up to the window, so it's window takeout service, and you buy what you want, pay with credit card. There's a swiper on the outside. But then across the parking lot, you have Craft Bird food truck. Is that what it's called? Yeah.
I just parked next to it in the lot.
Yeah, and they're doing great. I go there a couple times a week, and I grab a little snack, and the food is amazing. So they've been here to. I think they're just there every day for people to have lunch.
Great.
Which is a great idea. I don't know how they got that spot. I don't know what that is, but it's good that they're there.
Yeah.
It's just a great option. It's outside, and you go up, you order, you hang out over on the other side of the parking lot. They call you and you go pick it up. Yeah, so it's good stuff. Yeah.
Well, it is almost lunchtime.
It is. You should. Yeah, the food is really good. It's amazing. I had Brussels sprouts, and I was really bummed. I talked to the guy. I said, where are the Brussels sprouts? He says, that's only a winter thing. Thank God it's over because I hate cutting Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
But they are really good. What would be, you think, a great business to have in West Hartford that we might not have, or maybe one that we do have that we need more of? Is there one that pops up that you think would be a great addition to already variety of different businesses and restaurants and things like that?
Well, I think this relaxing of the zoning that you mentioned, I think that opens some real opportunities. I think not necessarily like a Dave and Buster's, but a Dave and Buster's like, or like a Crystal Bees type of a venue where you can have it's a restaurant, it's a bar, it's got some video games, you can put like a mini golf course in there, bowling lanes. It's got a little bit of an entertainment venue. I think something like that, it would be something we don't have that you have to, if that's something you want to do, you have to go to, right now I think like you have to go to Southington or to Manchester to do something like that. I think I may say this now and then get yelled at when somebody hears me say that, but I think that was something it would certainly be good in town. We've got lots of families in town.
Yeah, we do. And what about are pool tables allowed, or were they allowed prior to this, like a restaurant with a pool table? Because I've never seen any. Because my wife and I and we always go to another town to play. But so I don't know. Hopefully that'll come around.
I don't know. Something I do know is that we don't have bars in West Hartford. We have restaurants that sell alcohol.
Yeah. I wonder if you see that changing, just to have a bar. I mean, who knows, right?
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if that would be good or what for the town, but who knows? Or if it fits. Yeah, but downtown, actually, every once in a while you see a picture. Somebody throws a picture up there. Normally, West Hartford Center is mobbed. It's hard to get a parking place, but it's easy now. There is nobody down there. Every once in a while I drive through.
As I said, I go every 3 to 5 days to get the mail, and I do try to check in on people wherever I can just to see how they're doing. It kind of ebbs and flows. I mean, there is activity down there. Again, mostly it's the restaurants open, but one of the things I've seen, and you're probably everybody listening to this, seeing this neighborhood, many more people jogging and walking.
Oh my God!
And I know Fleet Feet is open.
Okay.
Or they're not open, but they're operating.
Sure.
So if you've now suddenly decided to take up jogging to get away from your family for a little while, they can, I believe, get you properly outfitted for that.
Yeah, there is a ton of people jogging and walking, and I don't know, but we stay away from the parks. There's one place we go in Granby that we go to, but in general we stay away from the parks. But they're all over the streets in my neighborhood and driving home, and bicyclists, and
I've seen neighbors I didn't know I had.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, right. That's funny. What going back a little bit to when you first started in the chamber, what was one of the first things you did? One of the first initiatives, I guess, that you wanted to start doing when you started at the chamber a year ago?
One of the first things was to up our game on social media. When I say up our game, one of the things I made note of is that the content that was going on social media was almost exclusively about the organization itself. So here's an event we have coming, here's an event we just had. And with a lot of things like that, I like to apply the 20-80 rule. And my philosophy on social media is that 80% of the content that goes out on our platform should be about about a specific member or group of members. 20% should be about us and what we're doing. And sometimes the things are intertwined. There's this thing we're putting out right now, which is a series of testimonials. We have gotten a lot of positive feedback about the way that the organization has responded to this need, and people are specifically saying that to us. So we have taken this, and if you go on our Facebook page and our Instagram, you'll see them. We've turned them into little marketing pieces, and the marketing is really dual. It's about how the chambers help the business, but at the same time, it's coming from the mouth of a member, and it's got their logo on it and the name of their business on it. So it's a way for us to market the member and to market us. But that was probably the first thing that I implemented, and that seems to have been well received. So, we tell people, tag the chamber. I know you do a great job of it. When you put stuff up, we'll share it, or at the very least make a comment on it, so that it helps your algorithm and pushes it up there. Yep. And then the other thing was not something new. It was just something that had fallen a little bit dormant for a while. Which back then it was called the business to business roundtable lunches.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I've been to those.
And I guess when I came in, there was about a 9-month gap since the previous one. And that was something a member had told me, actually before I got here. It was a member I knew personally, and he gave me a call and said, they used to do this program. When you get back, I'd love it if you could revitalize it. And I said, well, certainly let me look at it and see what's going on. So we did. Over time, that's evolved a little bit. We started one, I'd say 3 months right after I got there, and then we would send out a survey and ask people, well, what are the topics you want to hear about? And often they were business-to-business topics, but sometimes they were really great ideas, but they were more designed for a business-to-consumer model. Yep. So we kind of changed the name, and unfortunately, the first one with the changed name was the virtual one that we did.
Okay.
So the program is now called the Business Resource Roundtable, or Business Resource Lunch. And that way it gives us flexibility in programming, because some of the stuff, that people had a need for, one was hyper-localization of marketing. That's more of a B2C thing, so we just wanted to have some flexibility. But that program went very, very well in the in-person version of it. And serendipitously, the next one that was on the schedule was Avi Smith-Rappaport was going to be the facilitator for one that we did live. We changed it for the digital one, and Zach, who works for him, presented it, and the topic was tools and best practices for working remotely.
Oh, perfect.
So
good timing.
Yeah, great timing. So
Yeah.
we had the same company facilitating it. We just had to change what it was about. And we have another one coming up on Wednesday with attorney Shelley Rosen, which is going to be another hot topic, which is tenant rights and landlord rights during the crisis.
Yeah, that's a good topic.
Because there's a lot, there's a lot of different things going on out there. There are certain safeties that were put in place by the government as far as evictions and things like that. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean you are never going to have to pay those rent bills and all of that. So Shelley is a real estate attorney, but has gone to great lengths to educate herself in the last several weeks on what is the current state of those laws, and she's going to be presenting on that on Wednesday.
It's almost like people are working more now than they did before this. I mean, I was talking to Avi or emailing back and forth. He says, "Yeah, I don't think I've ever worked so hard in my life because of all that he's doing.
Yeah,
just trying to help his employees make sure that they're working, and then serving his customers and things like that. And it's true for me too. As Not that I'm working harder, but I'm working. I mean, I'm at the office. I'm meetings and clients and stuff. So it's people are still, even though we're locked down, people are still, they brought all their stuff home or wherever, and they're working harder than ever, which I think is terrific. I think that's probably happening everywhere, but it's really great to see in this community that everybody's still really working hard, and is optimistic, and is really there to, like we mentioned before, is there to help their colleagues or fellow businesses or whatever, other people's families.
Before we put the mics on, I told you that my cell phone is the Chamber of Commerce phone right now. So I get calls all the time, and and I answer them, and I'm constantly on my email, managing that, as are Jesse and Kate. We've been working remotely for about 5 weeks now, and everything that's gone out that you've seen has come from the comfort or discomfort in some cases of our own homes. Yeah.
I'm always thinking like that the brand of the chamber is almost everybody else's brand, because if you have a business that's doing well, that's a member, I mean, that can only reflect on you positively, that you have all these really thriving businesses that are all members. And part of that, I know part of my success has been because of the chamber. So I think your brand is just the whole community, all the business put together. I mean, that's really who you are.
I've been involved with chambers of commerce going on about 8 or 9 years now, but 3 of those years have been in a professional or executive capacity, and I hear that all the time. And it always surprises me. I mean, I had a member out in when I was in Waterbury, and I've used this example before. He was a retired police officer, but he loved cars. He just wanted to open a garage. Mm-hmm. So he rented 2 bays on the side of a pizza place in Woodbury, in the middle of nowhere on Route 6. Like there was, he was literally, you would have thought this was someplace, in the middle of Kansas. And he was a chamber member in Waterbury. He was very active. He was very visible. Everybody knew who he was, and he was able to, in a short time, I want to say 2 or 3 years, buy a 9,000 square foot facility on Route 69 in Watertown, and he will tell you that the chamber is one of the main reasons for that. And it's beyond marketing his business. It's the relationships that he was able to make. Yeah. He got to know the real estate agents. He got to know the commercial lenders. He got to know the people that, now that he had to add staff that could help him with his payroll and his HR outsourcing. He got to meet the attorneys that could really help make sure he was protecting his business. He got to meet marketing people that could help him rebrand. His brand was, was one thing, one place, but when he opened the new place, it was a total rebrand for his business.
Did he keep the same name, or did he change it?
No, he changed it. Okay. Because he changed it before he moved it, because he wanted to start marketing the new brand.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That's smart. That's another great example of really thinking ahead in terms of branding. Why wait until you're open? Start, promoting it before you're open. I think that's important. That's not probably possible for some people, but if you can do that, that's probably a great way to go about it. I remember, it's a great example is Sonic. Sonic?
Yes, of course.
So I worked in TV, and years before Sonic ever opened up here, we'd seen these commercials. Like, who the heck is Sonic? Like, where? There was no Sonic. But I think it wasn't a year. It was years. It was years.
You're absolutely right.
And all of a sudden now they got one in. And when they opened, there was it was all over the place. People were so excited to go to Sonic because they've been hearing about it for years, and now they finally get to check it out. And I guess they're doing well.
Again, they have a business model that's built around very limited contact, so they probably are doing fine.
Yeah. What are some future? You don't have to divulge any secrets or surprises if you're trying to keep one. But what are some, again, COVID-19 aside, and where we are? Maybe you had some thoughts before we went into this. Future plans for the chamber as far as moving forward, how to represent the businesses. Do you have anything that you want to talk about?
So, I would be cautious at committing to anything right now. Things are changing, but I will tell you, Jesse, Kate, and I talk every day, and that is we've already just started talking about it. I said we need to really think about, on the other side of this, how do we continue to grow? But I don't know what that's going to look like right now, because I've used the example. I'm very involved with the chambers of commerce across the state and frankly across the country at this point. And the question keeps coming up. Chambers generally derive their revenue from 3 places, sometimes 4. But it's dues, so it's the renewals of their members and the new members that join the chamber. It's the ticket sales for events, and it's sponsorships of events or programming. 2 out of the 3 of those are effectively on hold at this point.
Right.
So we have the membership right now.
Which we've had new members join in this past, which is incredible.
Yes, just in the month of April, we've had 7 new members join.
It's amazing. That shows the power of this chamber and how confident people are, and how appreciative they are of being a member, and how important it is to the community. So anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm thinking, I've already started thinking about. I don't think anybody thinks that the governor one day is just going to say, okay, everything can just open. I think restaurants are going to probably have to have some new spacing guidelines on tables, and the way lines are done. But our events, which were typically held in venues, and one of the things about our chamber, one of our biggest problems was capacity.
Yeah.
We sold out pretty much any event that we would want to have, and those were big round tables with 10 or 12 people at them. I don't know when we will be able to go back to putting 10 or 12 people at a table, and even if we could, are people going to be comfortable doing that?
Yeah.
So I have, and I don't know what the answer is right now, but that's something that I'm very mindful of. Is something that would have been 200 people or 300 people is capacity now going to be 100?
Yeah.
And I don't have the answer to that right now, but it's something I'm thinking about now, versus September when we want to do an event.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if it would lead to I don't know if that's silly, but multiple events of the same thing, So instead of having 200 people, you have 2 events, each with 100 people or something.
Or perhaps a simulcast.
Or a simulcast. There you go. Yeah. Maybe that's.
Too bad I don't know any videographers.
Yeah, no, you got to find one. There's got to be a couple in the chamber, maybe, right? Yeah. What would you suggest? It came back to me. What would you suggest a new business moving into town? What are the top 3 things? Whether it's somebody left their regular job, they want to open a business, doesn't matter what it is. It could be a restaurant, a retail outlet, video production company, doesn't matter. What are maybe 3 things that you would recommend to this person that are pretty generic across the whole business spectrum that they could do to get started?
Yeah, certainly if you're going to come into town, I would tell you that the chamber I would not even suggest that the chamber be your first stop, but you're certainly welcome to come by and say hello to us. I think your first stop would be hooking up with Kristen Gorski, the town's economic development specialist. Depending on what type of business you would be starting, she knows the available spaces in town. She also has access to, she knows a lot about different programs through the state and federal government that are available. So something that you may not have known, something specific for a women-owned business or a minority-owned business or a veteran-owned business that maybe you just missed, that's the type of thing that she really does have her fingers on the pulse of. And she's a great resource to help you get started and guide you in the right direction through zoning, health, if the Department of Health, if that's something you need to do. And then I would say the chamber, regardless of where you are in your business, and I cited the example of Float 41 and how they became active chamber members a full year before they hit the ground running. The chamber would be the next place. It's a great place to build a network. It's a great place for people to share who you are, what your vision is, and more importantly, to maybe find trusted people that can help you fulfill that. I used the example of the garage in Watertown. Right. That that business was built by chamber members effectively, and everything from the marketing to the law to who paved the driveway. That would be my next thing. And then the last part was, if you're in a physical space, really get to know your community, understand your community. West Hartford has 5 distinct neighborhoods and business districts. And beyond the chamber, we have neighborhood and business associations. Dave, you're the president of the design district. We have Park Road, we have Elmwood, we have Bishop's Corner, and we have the center. And each one of those has their own neighborhood association. And I can't stress enough that you should hook up with those people as well. They can really help with the hyper-localization of your business and help you connect, help introduce you to your local, to your neighbors and your local community. So I would say, that would be my 3-pronged approach: the town, the chamber, and then your neighborhood association.
Yeah, especially for this town, I think this really, when you say distinct, I mean, they really are distinct.
Yeah.
I mean, we at the design district is very different than the center or Bishop's Corner, or, I mean, they're all very distinct districts. Explain each one, because you have more contact with, I mean, obviously I've, as you mentioned, of design district, so I know about this one pretty much, but, explain each district for us briefly, and, what they do, sort of what's their specialty, what's their in, I guess. So what's their, when I say design district, for instance, like, what do you think of? So let's start there.
Yeah, well, I think of, first of all, I think of New Park Road, which is pretty much the spine of the design district. And it's interesting. You mentioned LeGrand, how big it was, and you wouldn't know it was there. Mm-hmm. Well, I think the same is true for the design district. So if you look at the facade, you've got, your Raymore and Flanagan's and your Tile America and Holland Kitchens and all that. And you certainly have some restaurants and the pub right here on the side, but then just go 200 feet beyond those, and there's a lot of buildings, and they're just loaded with things: catering companies, there's ballet schools, there's martial arts schools, there's gyms, there's there's a co-working space,
There is, yeah.
And all these really unique, there's oil companies and, all of that. So that would, for me as the design district, is to go a little bit beyond the facade. The facade is, what you see, but there's so many other vibrant businesses back there.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why talking about brands, that we rebranded from the home design to design, to be more inclusive of the varied businesses in this location. As you mentioned, I mean, we're definitely strong in home design, whether you want tiles.
It's the doggy daycare capital of the world.
Doggy daycare, right?
There's several of them in here.
Yeah, there's a ton of
Wagging Tails and Uber Dog, and there's a couple of others.
Yeah, there's one right around the corner. Same question. So when you think of the center business association, what comes to mind?
I just think it's active. I think the whole town is active, but I just think it's alive. Mm-hmm. It's very alive. And you've mentioned that, what it normally is like. Lots of you can walk up and down the street and you can get ice cream. You can get something to eat. You can buy a screwdriver. You can buy a necktie. And maybe more than any other neighborhood, it's the one where it's got, even though it's got that, there's a little bit more of an old school feel to it. And by that, what I mean is, sometimes you'll see the business owner kind of out in the front of their store, checking things out. There's certainly pride of ownership. I think there's pride of ownership across the whole town. People keep their places very neat and clean. It's hip. I joke a little bit, because prior to taking over the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce, I was the membership director of the Waterbury Regional Chamber of Commerce, and my office was right downtown in Waterbury. And I joke that I moved from Gotham City to Beverly Hills 90210.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the reason I'm a member of the Waterbury Chamber. Because you started the networking over there that they still do, the Wake Up Your Business. So that's another terrific, thriving chamber. I think they're doing.
Oh, absolutely.
I think they're doing great over there. Yeah.
Great team of people there.
Yeah. Now Bishop's Corner is a little bit different because they're not necessarily a business association, right? They're more of a neighborhood.
They're more of a neighborhood association. Yep. And busy is what I would say is what I think of when I think of Bishop's Corner. And it's got a nice mix. You've got your big names, your McDonald's and your Staples over there. But then right across the street, you've got Ocho Cafe. You've got how many grocery stores? Two now, but there were
one on each corner.
Yeah, there were three. But banks and you Float 41's over there. You've got Orange Theory. You've got a nice mix of nice different restaurants and services. Target's there too. So it's one of our big box corners.
That's right. And they got a couple of little shops that that are kind of tucked away in there too. I think that there's a barber in there, and there's is there an eye doctor or dentist, something like that over there?
Probably both. And there's a stationery store in there.
So they got a lot of stuff going on.
And Park Road is
I was going to bring that up next. I like Park Road. Talk about kind of old world, old school. I think Park Road hits
Park Road for me. It's walkable. Like it's just kind of fun. It's got a little bit of an older look to it, but again, there's artists that operate out of there. We've got the theater.
That's right.
Probably aesthetically, my favorite building in town is there, AC Peterson's.
Okay,
I just love that building.
Yeah.
You've got the School Sisters property in there. It's a fun, cool place.
Yeah, of course you got Hall's Market, and they're another great example. So Hall's has been a little tiny grocery store in town for forever, really forever. And but now they have they started that takeout place a while ago. I don't know how long it's been in business, but they do sandwiches, salads, hot meals and things like that for takeout. They got a little takeout place, and that it's right up the road here, so I get there, and food is amazing over there. So
unless we forget Elmwood.
Yeah, let's go to Elmwood.
Elmwood, I also have a little bit of a nostalgia with that. I was born in New York City, but I was mostly raised in the Black Rock section of Bridgeport, and Elmwood reminds me very, very much of that area. Same thing, they're right behind that business line is the residential place. But the same thing, a lot of those neighborhood places, the Beachland Tavern, and but we also have a Pepe's there, and organic pasta place. So there's been some newer businesses came in. We just had Frida open, which is wonderful Mexican cuisine. Same thing though. You can walk in and see your local insurance agent there. And that's where Dr. Liftig operates in that area as well. So again, your neighborhood dentist. He's been in town for forever.
Forever.
It's got that feel to it.
I'm going to put you on the spot. I want to back up to Park Road. I'm going to put you on the spot. So, Effie's or Quaker Diner?
Oh, so
it's Quaker, right?
It's the Quaker Diner. So, remember how you started this conversation about your mother brown bagging for you? So the truth of the matter is I bring my own lunch very often, so I don't eat out as much as I probably should. Yeah. So I'll just be honest, I've not gone to the Quaker Diner yet. So unfortunately, not unfortunately, fortunately, because I love John, Effie's wins. I worked in a Greek restaurant when I was in high school. And I have to tell you, Effie Spanakopita is the best I have ever had. And I've eaten at a couple of really high-end Greek restaurants and tried it there. And John's is the best.
Yeah, no, they have amazing food over there.
Yeah,
I like them both. Yeah, no, they're two very different establishments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very different. And both of them have great food. So, anything else before we wrap this up that you really want to talk about? You want to give yourself a plug or another place a plug or anything you want to say before we call it a day?
I will just say to any business owner out there, Dave said it. I'd love to hear from you, whether you're a chamber member or not. I use the phrase that John Kennedy uses: "A rising tide raises all ships." And a little bit of background on that quote is that he didn't specifically write it. It was actually a slogan of a chamber of commerce in the Boston area.
Oh, get out.
So it holds true today. And then just the last part is, what people see the chamber doing now is kind of what we've always done, which is to support businesses. I think before that, it was always the flashy things that got noticed or got picked up by the press. So yes, if you saw the Chamber of Commerce, you thought, okay, those are the people that, it's a volunteer organization that just runs around with big scissors cutting ribbons all day, which we do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not all day, and it's not the only thing we do. And it's not just social networking type events. We do provide value, we do provide education, we do provide access to resources, and we do provide advocacy for our businesses to help them survive and be able to operate as easily as they can within the parameters of regulation.
And I think you're a sounding board too. If somebody has an idea and they need somebody to kind of bounce something off of, I think I've called you up and asked you a couple things from time to
absolutely.
time. And I think that's a great resource to have. Somebody you just call up, hey, listen, I got this idea or whatever. What do you think? So I think that's a great resource to have somebody sort of impartial who gives good advice, who's been familiar with businesses for a long time. So
yeah, and I've mentioned the fact that I do have 2 team members, and I will do that myself. Like I will come across something, and I'll say to myself, you know what, Jesse's really good at that, or Kate really has a handle on that. And I'll say to the business owner, you know what, I'm going to have Jesse reach out to you or Kate reach out to you because I think they might be able to help you navigate that. And people just love it. They love it more when you do it proactively and say, I see what's going on here. Let me see if I can get somebody to help you. And, I will refer them to the town and very often, I mean, not a day goes by that I don't refer one business to another business. As what I think is a good strategic alliance or could be a beneficial resource for each other.
And I think the education you get away from the chamber is amazing. You hear sometimes, well, I'm not a member because I haven't gotten anything from it. Well, it's sort of, you need to kind of put a little bit into it. And I think it's easy to do that with the West Hartford Chamber, to be active, because the members are just, they just want to help you out, and they want to be active too. So I think it's really easy to be active in the West Hartford Chamber.
Yeah, it is, and that is one of the things I have to go back with people and say, I think you do, depending on your business, but there's certain businesses that just inherently, because of the nature of your business, that the networking and visibility is not what you can do. So the truth of the matter is, it's the 80-20 rule. We probably only have about 20% of our members are actually very, very visible.
Yeah, I agree.
80% of them, their value comes from their name being in the directory. Right over here on the wall, I know you've got your stickers here. Yep. That when somebody opens the door to their establishment and they see that sticker there is an implied quality to a business that is a member of the Chamber of Commerce. They've actually done studies, and if you ask the average person, what do you think of a business that is a member of the Chamber of Commerce? That's the simple question. 85% of them will come back and say that it's trustworthy.
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not is still on the business itself to operate themselves in an honest fashion. But the perception is that you are, because you are a member of the Chamber of Commerce. So some businesses do it for that. Others are, I mentioned the nonprofits. The nonprofits, it's a great way for the nonprofits to promote their interests to other business owners. And Dave, you and I have seen some fantastic examples of that. I mean, Food Share is probably the most obvious one. Amazing, in the way that people have stepped up, volunteered, donated, you name it, to help them. Another great example, again, a very small town-run nonprofit, the Ron Foley Foundation. Right across the street from their office, there's a jeweler that makes exclusive jewelry that part of the money goes to the organization. Yeah. I can guarantee that relationship would not have happened were not both of those organizations members of the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. Yeah. A quick question. How many businesses, well, that's not a fair question because a lot of the members, or a good amount of members, are not actually West Hartford businesses. But my question anyway is how many businesses are in West Hartford, and what's the percentage of them, if you know the answer, that are members of the chamber?
So there's roughly, and I just heard this number yesterday from Kristen. I want to say she said there was 2,200 businesses in West Hartford. Wow. So again, it's hard for me to do the number in my head because we have 570 members, with a vast majority of them being in West Hartford. Sure. But we also have members in 40 towns that are not West Hartford. Yeah. Which demonstrates the desire to do business in West Hartford.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say 20%.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Is probably an accurate number.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. I don't know what to compare that on. I was just curious. I don't know what that is, good, bad, otherwise, no idea.
That's the higher end. And again, chambers of commerce across the country are very, very different. You can have a town that all of their businesses are on, the equivalent of us to, Farmington and LaSalle, and that's every business in town there. Okay. And you would have 90% to 100% of the businesses would be chamber members. Yeah. We're probably slightly higher than our peers. I know some chambers, there is an analysis that you can get done. They're in like that 14 to 16% range. So my very unscientific math, if I say we're at about 20, okay, we're a little bit higher than the average around here.
Good. That's good to know.
That's
good to know. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming out on this very cold spring day with snow on the ground and a little bit of wind and what have you. But tomorrow's supposed to be nice, so that'll be good. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was glad I could jump in at the last minute for you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, again, I got to get better at scheduling, but this whole COVID thing has sort of put a wrinkle in my schedule.
You should have come to our luncheon on organizing and scheduling yourself.
Yeah, we had that. That'd be a good one for me. Yeah, that'd be a good one for me. Anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in every week to listen to Behind the Brand. Again, this was Behind the Brand with Chris Conway of the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce. If you want to check out the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce, just go to whchamber.org.com. Okay, good. whchamber.com. Thanks, Chris. And check it out. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Chris.
And follow our social media. We're on there constantly.
What's the what's the name? What is it?
Well, they all have slightly. They rolled at different times. Just go on our website and
it's
then,
all there.
Yeah, you just click on them at the bottom and that'll get you where you need to go. Or you just look them up, West Hartford Chamber. You'll find them.
Yeah, whchamber.com, guys. Check them out. Thanks very much. We'll see you.
Thank you.